Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to get started. Looks like everyone's gotten a chance to have some lunch. I'm Chris Cooney, President of the Metro South Chamber of Commerce, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to another edition of Good Day Metro South. We like to think it's a good day, even if it's raining a little bit, right? Golf course needs it. There's an amazing falcon on the fence out there, just landed. Ever see that? Isn't that amazing? So he's getting lunch, too. It is especially nice to gather here at the beautiful Thorny Lea Golf Club during the first week of fall. The season reminds us of change, reminds us of opportunity, and of growth. Perfect themes for today's gathering. I would like to begin by thanking Rich Campbell, General Manager of Thorny Lea. Let's have a round of applause for him and his outstanding staff here. They always make us feel welcome and provide excellent service and great food. I'd also like to thank today's sponsor, Rockland Trust. They're here. We got a table. We're going to hear from them a little bit. Clark Grant, just while he was taking a bite of his food. And United Way of Greater Plymouth County is our host sponsor. Your support makes events like this possible. We have Dennis with us, and Jared. We're going to hear from them a little bit. Additionally, I'm honored to welcome our speakers from the United States Chamber of Commerce and from the Massachusetts Office of Business Development, and our many partners in economic development who serve as connectors and points of contact for companies seeking growth and expansion here in the region. These folks are connectors. They come here, they hear information, they bring it back to their clients and help them along the way. So some of those partners that are here today are the Mass Office of Business Development, the Seed Corporation, SCORE Advisors, Mass Development, NeighborWorks, the Massachusetts Small Business Development Center Network, the Brockton Planning Department, and the Easton Planning Department. Let's have a round of applause for all of them. I want to call your attention to the green sheets in the middle of your table. If you have a question for one of our speakers, please write it down and hold it up, and Chamber Ambassador or staff member will be by to pick it up. As time allows, we'll ask these questions or certainly provide them to the speakers so that we can have informal discussion afterwards. It is now my pleasure to introduce today's MC, the chair of the Chamber's Government Affairs Division, longtime community leader and former CEO of the Brockton Neighborhood Health Center, Sue Joss. Sue.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks to everyone for braving this rainy weather. It's actually good to see some rain for a change. And yes, I'm loving retirement, Mayor. I highly recommend getting rid of the stress every day. So lots of travel, but thank you for all who've asked. Okay, so before we get started, I'd like to thank some important groups. So please raise your hand when I call your name, and let's hold the applause for the end. So first, our Chamber of Ambassadors, Mary Ellen Baker from HR Alternatives, Felicita Sepulveda, Cape Verdean Association, Rico McNeil, Bluestone Bank, Richard Hook, SCU Credit Union, Francia Montero, Rockland Federal Credit Union, and Mary Jane Anen, from Combined Insurance. So how about a round of applause for all of our fabulous ambassadors who greeted you. I'd also like to thank the Chamber Board of Directors who are here, Doug Smith from Stonehill College. I think joining us soon, Carol Chin from McDonald's and Michael Lambert, Brockton Area Transit. And officials in attendance today, Mayor Bob Sullivan, City Councilor Moises Rodriguez, who I'm not sure I see, but out his way, City Councilor Jack Lally, and maybe Senator Michael Brady. Are you here? No? Coming. Okay. So thank you all. So thank you for being here today and for your considered continued leadership and support in the Metro South region. So we have a great panel of speakers today, starting with Rockland Trust, Michael Casada, Certified Exit Planner. So Michael is first Vice President, been Business Owner Advisory Strategist at Rockland Trust Bank. Mike provides strategic guidance and support to business owners, ensuring they are well positioned to sell or transition business ownership when the time is right. As a former business owner turned investment banker, Mike has only over 20 years' experience supporting business owners transitioning their organizations to the next stage. So, Micah, welcome you up to for the interview. Come on up. Please, can I take you? So welcome, and so for those of you who aren't familiar with Brockton Trust, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about the bank?
Sure, happy to. So I'm going to make sure I don't blast everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Do I need to speak louder?
A little bit.
Okay, a little bit louder. Good. That's what I wanted to know. So terrific. Well, first and foremost, Sue, thank you for having me here today. And I want to thank the Metro South Chamber of Commerce for inviting me here to speak for Rockland Trust and tell you a little bit about this service that we're offering. For those people that don't know me, my name is Mike Casada. Sue gave you a little bit of my background. But I joined Rockland Trust about 2 years ago. My prior experience before joining Rockland Trust was I was an investment banker here in Boston, and primarily what I did was sell-side investment banking. So worked with business owners that had made the decision that they wanted to transition. They wanted to do an external transition, meaning sell it to a third party. They would hire our firm to represent them through that process. Prior to doing investment banking, I was a co-founder of a company that we successfully grew, and eventually we merged it with a publicly traded company, which I joined that company's executive team, and we bought 6 more companies, tripling our revenues before we were bought. So today, what I do is I bring all of that experience to our business customers and businesses in the area that need help. So the service is to guide business owners through this process, which is complicated. But let me tell you a little bit, which is what you asked, to tell you a little bit about Rockland Trust. So I'm joined by my colleagues over here from Rockland Trust. Rockland Trust is a commercial bank here in Massachusetts. It's headquartered in Massachusetts. It's 115 years old. It was founded by business owners on the South Shore, you can guess the town. And they recognized that they needed services that they weren't getting from the bigger banks in Boston. And that has been the thrust of our company for 115 years, which is to work with business owners and their families and people in the community through our branches, through our commercial lending, and through our investment management trust department to help families with managing their wealth and their commercial needs. So my role within Rockland Trust, I forgot something. So we just acquired, or we're now merging Enterprise Bank with Rockland Trust, which is going to extend our footprint up into Merrimack Valley and New Hampshire. So if you think about Rockland Trust, if you're Cape Cod, Fall River, Boston, Worcester, the North Shore, Merrimack Valley, and now New Hampshire, we cover that whole geographic area. So families, if you need branches, you need support, we have a good extensive branch support, and then obviously the commercial lending for both real estate as well as expansion. My role is to help business owners understand what they're trying to achieve and help them have a realistic plan on how to go about transitioning their business. And it could be that it's an internal succession, family leadership. It could be the thinking external, or perhaps even maybe an employee stock ownership plan. So I lean on my 20 plus years as an investment banker and as a business owner and a part of a public company to bring those insights to those business owners.
Great, thanks. And when do you think is the best time for a business owner to start thinking about selling or transitioning their business?
The best time to think about selling your business is when you're ready and the business is ready. And I know that sounds like a wise guy answer. And it probably is a wise guy answer, but the truth of the matter is not all businesses are ready. And that's what this service is about. The service is about helping business owners understand the process, which is complicated. So, let me, if I just refer to some notes here for a second. So if you think about demographics, 50% of the businesses, privately held businesses in the United States are owned by baby boomers. 50%. And every single one of them are thinking about retiring and transitioning out of the business. And this is a multi-trillion-dollar wealth transfer. And every single one of those business owners would like to be successful in that transition. But yet, if you look at the statistics, less than half of businesses that try to go through a process are successful in going through the process. As a matter of fact, we had a short conversation earlier about that. It's not easy to sell a business. It is hard. And it's not easy to even transition it to family or transition it to your leadership team. So the role that I play within Rockland Trust for our customer base is to be a branch that might know of a business owner that's thinking about it. They'll refer that business owner to me to learn more about it, or it could be a commercial lender that has a long-term relationship with the business, and they're going to ask the question, when is the right time to transition the business? And when we get that question, I do answer it in the same wise guy way, but let me explain what that means. It's an integrated financial plan. Now that sounds very fancy, but let me break that down. It's actually two plans. A business owner needs to have a personal financial plan, and they need to have a business succession plan. And you combine those two things to achieve the positive likelihood result, or the best result. So what is that? So when a business owner is thinking about transitioning their business and they're thinking about retirement, it's complicated. It's complicated for everybody in this room. If you thought about suddenly retiring, would you have enough income to replace your income from your job to manage and support your lifestyle? That's a complicated question. And you work through your career to try to save as much money as you can. Now, business owners, they're doing the same thing, but in the back of their mind, they're always thinking to themselves, I built a business that has value, and that business is going to support me in my retirement. And that's a big question that we need to answer. Is that enough? So you're going to hear me talk about wealth gap, value gap, earnings gap, and that's what I'm trying to solve for. So the personal financial planner sits down with the business owner and develops a personal financial plan for what's life like in retirement. And what we look at for that business owner is, how much money have you saved outside of the business, 401k, SEP IRA? Do you have passive income from real estate? Do you have other resources that you put aside? And what will that alone support you in retirement? If the answer is yes, you're well ahead of many. If the answer is no, then the question is, how much money do you need to get from the business? So we've just done a personal financial plan, and now we're solving for that problem. That's what the current state is. Now, at the same time, in parallel, a little bit of a firewall between me and the personal planner, I'm looking at the business and trying to answer the same question, well, what's the value of that business? And when I value that business, I'm thinking about the earnings of the business, and I'm thinking about the industry that the business operates in. Because no business is an island, and we're all held accountable to our peer group. And our peer group could be across the globe. Similar businesses performing in a similar way that transacted or publicly traded, transacted every millisecond, are valued. And we look at your business and compare it to your peer group, and we look at the earnings of your business and compare it to the peer group. And if you did a plot chart of all businesses that transact, it would form a bell curve. In the center of the bell curve, called the mean, and then you have one standard deviation, plus or minus. 68 of the percentages, oh, I'm sorry, thank you. 68% of the businesses transact within that bell curve, right, the center of the bell curve. But if your business is performing lower or has less earnings than the mean, then your business will trade at a lower value. If it has a higher, you'll trade at a higher value, right? There's some other factors which I'll get into in a minute. But in the end, what we're trying to do is solve for what is your business going to sell for, what's realistic, and what would that value. And then we turn back to the financial planner and we put that number into the financial plan and try to solve the personal financial plan. And if we solve for it and the business fills the gap, well, then we don't have a wealth gap. But if we doesn't fill the wealth gap, then we look at the earnings of the business and how can we improve the earnings to improve the value of the business. And sometimes that takes multiple years. So this is a complicated process because it's a complicated problem we're trying to solve. And what we're trying to do is increase the likelihood of success by creating a strategic plan for the business owner. And the strategic plan is really the whole purpose of it is to put the business owner in control of their present and their future, right? Sorry, long-winded.
That's a given, that's great information. Other than the financial planning, what is it that makes a business ready for sale or transition?
Yeah. So, thank you. My peers know that if you hand me a microphone, I like to talk. So if I'm going too long, please stop me. So today, if you talk to most business owners in this room, or if you walk around to a business owner and you ask a business owner, you'll hear that they're getting contacted from potential suitors all the time, people that are looking to buy their business. And that's a good thing. It tells them they've built an attractive business. But an attractive business isn't necessarily ready. And that's what I want to talk about next, is this concept of ready. So it's a part of the prior answer, but it goes into a little more detail. So ready for me is understanding the value of your business and how it will contribute to your plan. But behind that ready, I would say that there's actually some other factors. And this is what I'm leaning on with my 20 plus years as an investment banker. So we get into things like owner dependency, customer dependency, key employee dependency, location dependency, vendor dependency, informal or formal partnership dependencies. When you're the counterparty in a trade and you're evaluating a company, you're going to evaluate that company and look and say, are those earnings sustainable and transferable? And if they're sustainable and transferable, it's because they looked at the owner dependency. I'll meet with the business owner, and the business owner will say to me, I'm the best salesperson in this company. Now, that might be true. But does that make that business transferable to a new owner? It's got a high level of owner dependency. Counterparty risk is high. So a buyer of that business is going to feel risk. Same thing if the lease on the restaurant is going to expire in a year, right? That might be a problem. Or if you've got key employees and they can leave at any time, but yet the key employees have the relationships with the most important customers. If 25% of the revenues come from one or two customers, these are all counterparty risk. So part of our assessment is to look at the business, look at the counterparty risk, and come up with strategies on how to mitigate that risk. And if we can mitigate that risk and build a strategic plan, answer the question of are you financially ready, and if the business is ready, then you're ready to now go forward with either an internal sale or an external sale. That's what Rockland Trust is trying to do on behalf of its business clients that own businesses. It's a unique service. Maybe other banks offer it. I'm not familiar with any that do. It's something I'm proud to be a part of. I think it really speaks to Brockton Trust. We have a motto at Brockton Trust. The motto is where each relationship matters. And I think this role that they've asked me to be part of the bank and help reflects that motto. Each relationship matters, and helping our business customers transition their business is really a critical role, especially when you think of, again, 50% of businesses are owned by baby boomers who are all thinking that they're looking to exit the business and retire. So I don't know if I went too long, but that's what I have to say.
That was great information, and thank you so much. I know many of the businesses in the room are probably thinking, I wonder what I do when I retire. So, so thank you so much for coming. A token of our appreciation, of course, everybody gets the chamber pen. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
So one of the first people who mentored and supported me 30 plus years ago when I came to Brockton was Dennis Carmen. And Dennis is the president and CEO of the United Way. He was in a different role when I met him, but you know, I just have always admired Dennis Carmen. He started off, he spent 12 years as executive director of Mainspring Coalition for the Homeless in Brockton, providing shelter and transitional services. He earned dual master's degrees in social work and public administration from The Ohio State University and a bachelor's degree from Stonehill College. There you go, yay Stonehill. Dennis and his wife Teresa live in Halifax, where they raise 4 children, and he remains active in music and community service. So Dennis, welcome. Welcome, Dennis. So, talk to me a little bit about the United Way. How long has it been around? How did it get started?
I'm going to go off script right away, only because I feel dwarfed in this room with all the talent that's here, right? I honestly do. It was a very kind introduction, and I thank you for that. I'm thrilled to be in the current role that I'm in as the president and CEO of the United Way of Greater Plymouth County. But one of the things that you learn in the United Way system right away is you need to say your thank yous loudly, and you need to repeat it often, again and again and again. So, I think we are all lucky to be part of the Metro South Chamber of Commerce. It's been around for 100 years. It has done some fantastic work. Chris and his staff are just wonderful. And I'm wondering if you could all just join me, stand up, and a standing ovation for the Chamber of Commerce. Woo! All right.
Put it back together.
Thank you. That was you did okay.
That's expensive.
United Way, interestingly enough, goes back to 1876 in Denver, Colorado. A woman, a priest, 2 ministers, and a rabbi. Does this start to sound like a Broadway joke? But it isn't really. What's fantastic about this is those folks gathered together and decided that instead of having individual campaigns for all the needs in Denver, they would have a combined campaign. They would join forces together, and they would do better than if they were trying to raise dollars for each of the things for the orphans and the widows and the youth that needed help and all of this. And they raised a whopping $21,700. Doesn't seem like a lot, but in today's value, that would be $700,000. And they made a real difference in that community, and they set the pattern for the future for all these federated campaigns. In Boston, they called them the Red Feather Associations or societies. What's really interesting, some of you are as experienced as I am. That's code for being as old as I am, just so you know. You'll remember playing Monopoly, right? Landing on community chest and wondering what the hell that meant, right? But you got 20 bucks or 25 bucks when you landed on it, so it's okay. Well, community chests were an early incarnation of United Way. And then when there were wars in our country, they became war chests, where people did the very same thing. They got together, they pooled their resources, and made a difference in the world. And that's where United Way came about. In 1970, they had an umbrella organization called the United Way of America, so that all the, what amounted to United Ways could become the United Way of. We were, for a time, the United Fund. We were established in our local United Way in 1922, and then we became the Old Colony United Way somewhere in the 70s, and then in the early 2000s, we became United Way of Greater Plymouth County. But that's the beginning of United Way and what set the pattern for collective works making a difference, making 1 + 1 really equal 3.
Great, thanks. And can you talk about how a local United Way such as yours works to serve the community?
Happy to do that. United Ways locally, all United Ways are local. Even though a lot of organizations have these big conglomerates in different parts of the country, typically Washington or New York or California, United Ways are all individually set up. They have an individual board of directors that's volunteers. We do abide by United Way worldwide regulations and branding, but we are governed by a local board. All the dollars that are raised to a local United Way stay locally. We are lucky in our case to have the best of the best community partners. Some of them are in this room and funded. We are lucky enough to have a number of companies in this room that have supported us year in and year out. And I have to give a certain shout out again to our friends at Rockland Trust. Every year, Rockland Trust employees raise in excess of $200,000. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, you can say wow, because that is a wow. But beyond that, as I was telling our colleagues at Brockton Trust who are with us today, it's so much more than just the dollars raised. It's the volunteers that they contribute to the process that we distribute the dollars. It's about having volunteers for the boards locally in this community, not only just ours, but all of the nonprofits that need the expertise of people who are doing those kind of things. So what United Way does is we designate the need areas by reviewing what are the biggest needs in our community, and they're fairly consistent, and you'll recognize them. Feeding our families, housing and homelessness, accessibility to affordable health care, children and youth services, and helping the underemployed and the unemployed. Makes common sense that those are the things that we would be raising funds for in order to get organizations in our community to apply for funds who will make a difference. Because the code word for us is community impact. It's an investment in the community. When you give to United Way, you're not just giving to one program. You're allowing our volunteers to decide where those dollars should go to make a difference. And organizations are required to do at the end of the year report to let us know how they did with the dollars. So it's really a very thoughtful process. It's infused with community volunteers. It is a great process. My only regret over the 20 years that I've been with our United Way is that we're not raising more money. And we need to do that. So we're hoping that that's the case.
Great, thanks. And Dennis, what do you think is the greatest need right now in Plymouth County, and what is the United Way doing to address it?
Thank you, Sue. Oh, and incidentally, the fact that I could even begin to mentor you in any capacity is just ridiculous. I introduced Sue to my family and colleagues and friends as one of the brightest people I know, and I'm very happy that we've been able to work together over the years. As I've said, I think it's obvious to say we need more financial contributions, but I think it's more important to broaden that to we need more resources that include not only financial contributions, but include an investment in human capital, people's perspectives. We know, yes, we need to raise more dollars, and people are generous to give us their treasures, but we also need their time and their talent. And we need it because it's more than just throwing money at problems. It's really looking at the community and working together and finding creative ways to use the limited dollars that we have. Let's face it, these are very challenging times. And I'm not going to begin to go in the political realm, just to say, obviously, there are deep, deep needs in our communities to feed people, to house them, to make sure they're helped, and to have dollars and brain power and heart power to make a difference is what we're really looking for. And all of that is in the guise of, there's something that I think our United Way does that's fairly unique, and we need to do more of it. And that's, I don't know if you can read this, but my tie is my hope tie. We need to instill some hope in the world, in our community, that things can get better, that by working together we can make a difference. And that begins by having empathy, for understanding, to be able to put ourselves in other people's shoes, to know where they're coming from. If you're talking to somebody who's living in a deep hole, they need help getting out of that hole. If you're talking to somebody who's got a mountain in front of them and needs to get through that mountain, they need help going around it, they need help climbing the mountain and getting onto the other side. In New England, we probably understand very clearly the storms that we have in New England, right? The really, and if you're on the water, it's scary to have and go through that. So we need to be able to help people through the wind and the waves. Now, someone asked me whether I have my guitar with me, and I don't. But that doesn't mean you're safe. Okay, I'm just telling you that. Because music is wonderful, and there was a gentleman who wrote a song that was called The Sailor's Prayer. His name was Rod McDonald, and he did it in 1978. I graduated high school in 1978, so it was a long time ago. But I heard the song sung by Jonathan Edwards, who, in around the 1970s, made a huge hit with Sunshine, Go Away Today, remember? Sunshine, go away. Yeah, okay. Obviously, I didn't record that, so. But he sung this song, and I heard this song introduced, and it's a wonderful song about the storm. And what we need to do in the storm is to be there for other people. And it goes something like this. I'm not going to do the whole thing because we don't have the time. But it goes like this. Though the sails are torn and tattered, and the mast be turned about, and the cold wind chills me to my very soul, though the salt may sting my eyes, and the stars no light provide, give me just another morning light to hold, for I will not lie me down. This rain's a raging, I will not lie me down in such a storm. Though this night be unblessed, I shall not take my rest till I reach another shore. Though this night be unblessed, I shall not take my rest till we all reach another shore. Thank you for the great questions. Thank you for your past support of United Way. Please continue to support us. We have many people out there who need our help, need to be fed, need to be housed, need to be given health care. And I thank you for the opportunity to be here. And again, the Metro Chamber the Metro South Chamber of Commerce rocks, right?
You're always amazed us every time we see you, and thank you so much, and of course, here's your pen.
Oh, thank you.
So, thank you all. Thank you, Dennis. All right, wasn't that amazing? All right, it's now my pleasure to introduce Naomi Berlin, Assistant Secretary for Business Growth at the Massachusetts Executive Office of Economic Development. Naomi works to ensure businesses come, stay, and thrive in Massachusetts. She previously led global sales for the Cambridge Innovation Center, supporting innovative ecosystems worldwide. Earlier in her career, she worked in public relations, government relations with Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, and in political fundraising. Naomi holds a BA from Tufts University and an MPA from NYU Wagner School. She lives in Roslindale with her husband and 2 children. Please join me in welcoming Naomi Berlin to share insights on Massachusetts Business Front Door Initiative. Naomi?
Thank you. Some slides. I don't know if they were loaded up.
Don't do tech.
Oh, beautiful. No, it's perfect. It's all set up. Thank you. I'm not going to sing. That was beautiful, though. I am so excited to be here. Chris, thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you so much for the work that you do at the Chamber. This is my second time now coming here, and every time it actually gives me a lot of hope. You really do such important work for our business community here, so I'm really grateful and happy to have the platform here. All right, so my task is to talk about the business front door. Before I do that, so I'm from the Executive Office of Economic Development, and my role is Assistant Secretary for Business Growth. Essentially, I think of that as sales for the state. So businesses are our customers, and I want to sell them, make sure that they can stay and grow here. Now, we have a lot of exciting things happening in Massachusetts. We're leaders in innovation, in talent, and in quality of life. I'm actually a Florida native, and I choose to live here. I choose to raise my family here. We are the best state to be a woman, the best state to live in. We've got the best education system in the country, best healthcare system in the country. We know our talent pool with our amazing universities. They're here. We have the highest educated workforce in the country. And then, of course, with innovation, again, major leaders. A third of all Nobel laureates last year reside in Massachusetts, and that is not atypical. But all of that requires a ton of work and investment. We cannot rest on our laurels. In Massachusetts, every other state is leveling up, and we have to level up with them. So last year, the administration passed the Mass Leads Act. Now, the Mass Leads Act essentially funneled a $4 billion economic development bonds bill to support our leadership in key industries and enable us to lead in new ones. And I'm not going to go into sort of the details of what all of these mean, but one of the things that it did, oh wait, actually I forgot I had this slide. What's really cool about Massachusetts is not only do you have the Office of Economic Development, but we have these quasi-state agencies that are leaders in these industries. And so we funnel money through them to then go to our business community to not only provide resources, but also ecosystem development and really develop clusters around the state to support these initiatives. So I really think of them as our superpower. We work really closely together to make sure that we're supporting our business community. And I saw there's someone from the Small Business Development Center, so thank you for your work and the team there. They've been amazing partners in supporting our small business community here. But here's the thing. So what used to happen is that a business would talk to all these different agencies separately. They would have no idea it all comes from the same pot, even if they knew that these agencies existed. That is incredibly time intensive, and the business wouldn't necessarily get to what they needed at the end of these conversations. So as a team, we decided to flip the script. We started the business front door. We formally launched this in July, but we've been in soft launch essentially since November and have over 1,000 businesses in the system already. So our idea with the business front door is to better connect the business to a member of Team Massachusetts so that we can provide them with a tailored fit set of resources that make sense for their point of growth. So here's what this looks like. First, we actually built a website because we need to consolidate things in one place. It's not that complicated, but it's pretty important. And actually, I'm very proud of this. We built the website. Actually, the main website is Why Massachusetts, because I think it's important, again, to sort of make the pitch on why Mass. But then within that, we have the business front door. So on that website, you can see just a list of frequently asked questions I would say that businesses have for us in starting and building your business, questions around taxes, accreditation, permitting. So that leads to a lot of other different websites. And then we have a list of funding and resources, right, state programs that are available to our business community, again, in one place. It's not comprehensive, but there's a lot there. And I'll give you a few examples of the types of resources that are there. Now, before I joined the agency in November, I worked in the private sector for a while. And my job was to support businesses to grow in Massachusetts. And I literally had no idea that these programs existed. So here's a few examples of ones that are really popular that I think would benefit so many of you. So Biz Empower is offered through Mass Development's Growth Capital team. And this is a grant that's available for small businesses where essentially it helps them offset any capital expenditures that they have. So one example is, I live in Rosendale, as you heard. There's an awesome ice cream shop that opened called Sweeties. It was a former architect who was done with architecture. She wanted to open up ice cream. She needed this expensive piece of equipment. So she got this grant from the Biz Empower program to help purchase a piece of equipment. Excellent ice cream if you're ever in town. New Zealand, it's really good. Then there's also the Workforce Training Fund. This is another really popular one that all businesses can take advantage of, small and large. This is done through a quasi-state agency called the Commonwealth Corporation. But as your employees want to be trained up, as you are building out training programs for your employees, there are grants for that. And they're actually very easy to access. I did it in my last company where I wanted to get trained up in something, and I could just register and do it and then got compensated for it. So super easy to do. And then one of the programs that we're very excited about that you may be familiar with is the Economic Development Incentive Program. That's run through our agency. This is one of the best ways as an economic development agency we can compete with other states. Through that Mass Leads Act, we actually overhauled this program to make it much more competitive. And in doing that, we were able to attract Hasbro here that announced last week the largest lease in Boston since 2020. So this is making a big impact. But this program, what's awesome about it, is if you are adding new jobs, if you're at this inflection point of growth, you can get a tax incentive, or if you are actually not a company that has a tax liability because maybe you're a startup, these can be refundable tax credits, which essentially means a check for all the new jobs that you're committing to creating. And that program runs, again, quarterly, relatively easy. We've simplified these applications. These are all very accessible programs for our business community, but most people haven't heard of them. So this is what the Business Front Door is trying to solve. In addition to the website, exciting, but the Business Front Door is a portal. A business just has to enter the front door. And it looks like this. They've stepped inside. They sign up. They tell us a little bit about themselves. What industry are you in? How many employees do you have? What region of the state are you operating in? And then we'll pair them with a member of Team Massachusetts. Now that member can be anybody from our Massachusetts Office of Business Development Regional Directors. Jem Menard was supposed to be here, but she had car issues, so she's not. But she represents the South Coast and Cape and Islands. But if there's a regional component that makes sense for you to connect with somebody, we have that person. Or if you're in one of our key industry areas where we have a quasi-state agency, we would connect you directly with them. But the idea is that on the back end, we're already connecting you with that Team Massachusetts Navigator. You're getting their contact information. And at this point, they haven't reached out or done anything yet. But the business can do one of two things. They can check out our resources by essentially telling us, what do you need? I'm at this point of growth. We're looking to expand. We need working capital. Whatever it is, they can fill out a very short form, and that usually actually gives the navigator enough information to provide some recommendations of, instead of the 20-something programs to pursue, hey, look at these two based on where you are right now. Talk to this person around financing options, right? We can sort of provide those explicit lists of resources, again, that are tailor-made for that business. Or something I'm very excited about is we have this path for asking a question. This has been very illuminating as we've gone through our soft launch and major launch. It's actually highlighted where Massachusetts is very bad at giving information to our business community. So this path, essentially, a business can ask us any question, and our team is going to chase down the answer for you. So you don't have to sit on the line for, the Department of Revenue, wherever it is, for many hours to then get sent to a voicemail box or not find an email address, right? We are going to take the time to track down this answer for you. Over time, you can also imagine we're collecting a lot of information. We're seeing a lot of gaps in how we're communicating out to our business community. And so there's a lot of things I'm excited about on the back end of what the 2.0 version of this is going to look like. But for now, very manual process, but we're learning a ton, and it's been very helpful. I will say, so I come from, again, sales, customer service background. If someone's exploring resources, somebody's getting back to them within a day, right? We want to make sure that this is responsive and that you at least have a contact as soon as possible. The Ask Us a Question path does take a little bit longer, usually about a week, because oftentimes we're also navigating all of our different agencies and trying to figure out how to get you the most comprehensive answer. So what does this look like if you explore resources? Your navigator makes some recommendations for you. They say, okay, great. You said that you're growing. You're adding jobs. That's awesome. You should look at our Economic Development Incentive Program. So we'll make that recommendation. A business says, yes, they're interested, or they're not sure, or no, right? And if it's a yes, or I'm not sure, it appears on their dashboard, along with maybe some people that we've recommended that they connect with. I think in that bottom part, the contacts, that's like a business card. But in this process, you're having interactions with your navigator too, but all these resources ultimately live on this business dashboard. And the idea is that we want you to keep coming back, right? This is your moment in time. Businesses are hopefully growing. So now, again, you have that same place of like, okay, who did I talk to last week? You don't have to remember their email address. You can just come into the business front door and we'll continue to provide that type of service over time. One last thing that we just launched as part of this is a whole application center too. So I have a dream one day every government application you could possibly apply to would live within this. That is very hard to do. Right now we have a handful of them. But regardless, the idea is that you can come here and you can see all the open programs and you can either get rerouted to their website or apply through the system. But what's also nice is like, because we already have your information from the other components, a lot of your applications are auto-populated with that information. You already have your certificate of good standing from the Department of Unemployment Insurance, right? All these things that you need for these types of grants and applications are also already there. So it makes it easier for you to apply and again, save you time. All right, so ultimately what we're hoping this thing does, you have a designated point of contact from the state. You get a tailored list of business opportunities. You have a pathway to ask questions and flag issues. You can more easily contact us, right? You're not spending a ton of time digging through websites trying to find the right person. You can see the resources in one place. And we have a streamlined website now about doing business in Massachusetts. Now, this is just a start. I call this like MVP 1.0 version. We wanted to get this out there. And so I do encourage you, sign up, give us feedback. There is a survey that goes out to everybody who uses the system so that we can keep doing better. I am looking at those results every single week, making sure that we're adapting and learning. And I'm really excited to sort of see where this thing goes. I will just say one more thing. What's also been very cool within government as we've been doing this is that other agencies are like, oh, we want to get in on this. So we're also seeing it expand and the potential impact expand too by creating essentially this single stop for our business community to interface with the Commonwealth. I think that is my last slide. Yep. Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Oh,
thank you, Naomi. That, of course, you have to get your pen. So thank you. That was great information. I'm sure it'd be very helpful to businesses. All right, our final speaker is Tom Sullivan, Senior Vice President of Small Business Policy at the United States Chamber of Commerce. Before I read his intro, just a reminder, the green slips on your table, please fill those out with questions if you have them, and just hold them up for Chamber staff and ambassadors to come around and pick up. Tom leads the United States Chamber's Small Business Council, ensuring the voice of entrepreneurs is heard in Washington. He previously served as Chief Counsel for Advocacy at the United States Small Business Administration under President George W. Bush, where he testified frequently before Congress on small business issues. His career includes private practice, nonprofit leadership, and national advocacy. Tom holds a JD from Suffolk University Law School and a BA from Boston College. He currently lives in Virginia with his wife and 2 sons. Please join me in welcoming Tom Sullivan, who will discuss the big new bill and its impact on small businesses. Tom, welcome.
Well, thank you, Sue. And as I get settled, Naomi, your program's working, and you're attracting folks to Massachusetts. I say that because I was in rural Virginia recently, and one of their biggest economic development selling points at this hospital complex was how many senior medical researchers were flying back and forth every day from, all right, you're still awake, yes, from Massachusetts. So it's working. Well, thank you, Sue, again. Thank you, Chris, for having me. I also am not going to sing. And I'll echo Naomi's comments that really was amazing. So thank you for inspiring us. Let me start by thanking and recognizing some folks, and some folks who aren't here. I mean, I'm from Massachusetts. I actually am a distant cousin, I think, maybe, of the mayor. We're both Boston College graduates. So for me, this is a little bit of a homecoming. And my colleagues, Steve and Kyla, they actually get to work with all of you every day. They cover all of New England. They are our U.S. Chamber of Commerce ambassadors to local, state, and regional chambers of commerce here in New England. I am completely jealous of Steve and Kyla. And I'm also very grateful that they allowed for me to substitute for them here today. So thank you, Steve and Kyla. And then last, but certainly not least, let me brag on Chris just a little bit. And I know I'm preaching to the choir. But you see this step and repeat to my right, to your left. It talks about 5-star accredited chamber. That's not a given. You don't just mail your check to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and get a 5-star accreditation. It is very, very hard, and it is the best of the best. I'll also say that Chris is part of a group of the top 100 Chamber of Commerces in the United States. This is made up of folks from state, local, and regional chambers of commerce. They just got done with a meeting recently in Louisville, Kentucky, also coincidentally where I met my wife. But I mentioned that, not about where I met my wife, but about how Chris Cooney is the best of the best. And I think it's just appropriate to recognize his leadership. He did not pay me to say that, but he did say that he would humbly tolerate a little bit of compliments. I'm also going to just touch on some of the past before we get into what I see going on with small business right now, and then hopefully plenty of time for questions and hopefully answers. First of all, what's the U.S. Chamber of Commerce? It kind of sounds fancy. It is fancy a little bit. We have beautiful offices directly across from the White House. So there's the White House, Lafayette Park, and then where I get to work every day, and I don't take it for granted for a second. When you walk into our headquarters, and please, if anyone is in Washington, D.C., tell Chris, he'll call me. I'll give you a tour of the building, beautiful rooftop that overlooks the White House. But when you walk into our building, there's this massive brass plaque when you walk in. And it's got the several hundred local chambers of commerce who created the U.S. Chamber of Commerce over 100 years ago. And it is my reminder every day that I work for all of you. We represent roughly 3 million businesses. Most of them are small. That includes membership of 1,600 local, state, and regional chambers of commerce. So how do we contact 3 million businesses every day? We don't. We have a poll that we do with our partners, MetLife, that helps us understand what the pulse of small business is, and I'll get into that in a second. But first, let me look at what happened about 5.5 years ago. When COVID happened and businesses were forced to shut down, and our focus legitimately turned on our own safety, the safety of our children, our family, our neighbors, and our employees, the Metro South Chamber of Commerce and all of its copycats around the United States band together to help. And thank you. In less than 12 months, the collective groups of chambers of commerce and all of you and your clones from all over the United States pushed Congress in a bipartisan way to pass 7 laws in 9 months. I mean, think about that in the current political environment. Bipartisan, almost unanimous, 7 laws in less than 9 months, all designed specifically to help small business. We could not have done that without your help and without the help of Chris and all of his peers around the country, so thank you. All right, this is where I get to pretend to be an economist. Let's look at what I'm seeing for small businesses around the country. And again, we as much as I would love to, I can't reach out to 3 million businesses every day. So we survey them once a quarter with our partners, MetLife. And just yesterday, we released the latest MetLife and U.S. Chamber of Commerce Small Business Index. A little bit surprised at some of its findings. Biggest surprise was that this index is the highest it's ever been. Now, I say highest ever. I mean, it sounds maybe a little bit bigger than it is. We've been doing this for 7 years. So I'll be a little bit more authentic and say this is the highest we've seen the index in 7 years. But keep in mind that 7 years includes the spring 2020. And the older I get, the less good my memory is. But spring 2020, businesses were doing pretty well. There was a worker shortage, but overall, businesses were doing pretty well. So this survey that was just released yesterday, that was pulled right after the tax bill became law, shows highest level of confidence in 7 years by small business. So why is that? Well, when you dig into the index, and it's an index is simply 10 questions that we ask small businesses every quarter. How did you do? How are you doing? How do you think you're gonna be doing? It's relatively simple. When you dig into the why, that why is business confidence in themselves. And for those of you who are small businesses or are related to small business owners or live next door to small business owners, that's not surprising. Small businesses, when you ask a small business owner, how do you think you're doing? A lot of their answer depends on their confidence in themselves. And we see that throughout the index. Cash flow. Small businesses right now at our all-time high confidence of cash flow. Now, there's good and bad in that, as our friends from Brockton Trust will tell you. The good is that small businesses have been squeezed so tightly over the last 7 to 10 years. If they don't have their handle on cash flow, they're not going to make it. And so right now you're seeing confidence because small businesses, by and large, have the handle on cash flow, so they believe, rightfully so, that they will be able to do better. Also, increased optimism of future revenues. Now, I got to be careful a little bit here, because when I say revenues, that does not mean profits. Now, in Washington, D.C., if you all were in the U.S. Capitol right now, I would have to explain that profits mean small businesses reinvest that money back to grow their business. But since I'm here in Brockton, I'm just assuming that all of you know that, and that gets a little bit about kind of my job every day to explain to members of Congress, profits aren't a dirty word. In fact, it is the ability of small businesses to reinvest anything that's left over back into their business, provide health care, buy machinery, expand their footprint, buy other businesses, whatever it takes. And so that confidence is at an all-time high. Well, let's get at the other side of the equation. All right, so if small business confidence is at an all-time high, what are some of the headwinds? Cost. That's really that simple. I mean, we have complicated economic terms for it, but it's really that simple. We ask small businesses, what's your biggest concern? It's been inflation for 15 consecutive quarters. Now, the good news is that it's less of a concern, but it's still the top concern. Now, I do have to explain, if there are any I know we have a university head here. When I talk about inflation, that's the small business definition, which is everything that costs more. There are some economists who have a much more precise definition, and I honestly don't know what that definition is. But small businesses tell me when employee costs more, that's inflation. When their supplies cost more, that's inflation. So inflation continues to top the list. And then it makes sense that in this latest index, when we ask small business, okay, let's dig in a little bit deeper. about your headwinds, they say costs of goods and services, costs of supplies. Those two combined, over 64% of small businesses are saying that's what's preventing them from growing. Now, in Washington, D.C., we deal with a lot of negative. It's our job to try to fix things, right? So you can't fix something unless it's broken. So we do focus, I will admit, we focus a lot on the things that are broken. But I'm still optimistic. And this graph, you don't have to have Superman like X-ray vision. I'll kind of give you the broad brushes here of what we're talking about. This graph or this chart is what gives me optimism. Now you'll see on the left, there's a big chunk of gray and orange that's kind of steady for a long time. That represents new business applications. I think Naomi's just all of a sudden like narrowing in on this chart, and she already knows where I'm going. But over the last 10, 15 years, new business applications have kind of remained pretty steady. There was a little bit of a dip in 2008, 2009 with the recession. It took 10 years for new business starts to start climbing up after 2008, 2009 recession. Now you'll see a big dip right before the post-pandemic. That's the COVID pandemic. Now what's crazy and what actually gives me optimism is what happened after the pandemic. It took 10 years to recover from the recession. It took 3 months for new business applications to start skyrocketing after the pandemic. There's two reasons for that. One that I don't really like talking about and one that I do. One reason is huge amount of government stimulus. Like the US government, with all of your help, said, we want to make sure employees are able to afford groceries. We got to keep paychecks going, but the businesses aren't open, so let's get that money out onto Main Street. And they did, and that caused a ton of people who had dreams of starting a business to say, hey, I got some extra cash. I want to work 80 hours instead of 40 hours, so I'm going to be a small business owner. And that actually contributed to the spike. The other reason, though, that I do like talking about is that businesses solve problems. That's what makes a small business successful, is when they hit this niche and everyone's like, oh my gosh, I have that problem, you're solving it for me. I want your product, I want your service. Never before in our short history have we seen more challenges that have to be fixed and met than the pandemic. And the data bears this out. The data show that that spike in new businesses was delivery, transportation, and logistics. Logistics and warehousing. I mean, FedEx and UPS could only deliver so many packages. And when they couldn't, in swooped entrepreneurs to provide those delivery, transportation, warehousing, logistics services. Now, over time, those same businesses morphed into other businesses. Right now, if someone were to guess, a lot of them are e-commerce businesses. They're still doing well, but they're not delivering packages to everybody who's working at home anymore. They've kind of morphed out of that first entrepreneurial success where they were fixing something. And the new business starts, which is that gray and orange chunk on the far right, they still are above pre-pandemic levels. That's what gives me optimism. When we talk about business failures, which aren't new, when we talk about business consolidation, which is not new, this chart is something that allows for me and others to be optimistic because there are all of these new businesses coming online. We really don't know what's going to happen to them, but it's still reason to be positive. So what keeps me and my team busy in Washington, D.C.? A lot. One, I have 2 teenagers, so that keeps me busy. But we advocate for the business community, and we try to push back against headwinds. And even though we see an all-time high from the Small Business Index, it could be higher. In fact, I would argue it should be higher. One of those headwinds is tariffs. And the U.S. Chamber of Commerce has challenged this administration to simply exclude small business from tariffs. We believe that the President of the United States can finalize trade deals to set what the rules are, but before those are finalized, exclude small business from tariffs. It's just an additional piece that is causing a lot of turmoil, a lot of uncertainty in the small business community. And this isn't just about toys that you're thinking about getting your kids during Christmas. We're talking about a business-to-business manufacturer who I get to work with who uses steel to produce stuff for her large business clients. She is getting squeezed at both ends. And her name is Tracy Tappaney. She's on the right, really good friend, incredible small business leader. She buys steel. That steel, even when it's domestic steel produced in the United States, has gone up between 14 and 18%. I'm not telling you guys are Brockton. You know what I'm talking about. And we believe getting squeezed on both sides. One, by her steel costs more, and the other is that her gigantic business customers, who she loves, are telling her, hey, can you just kind of bring down that cost a little bit? So she's getting squeezed at both sides. That's a headwind Tracy is trying to navigate through. It shouldn't be so hard, and we continue to be critical of the administration's kind of roller coaster of tariffs, and it's not going to stop anytime soon. There is a promotional one-pager. Now, I work with tons of lawyers, so lawyers like me say that one page printed both sides still is a one-pager because there's no way you could fit anything a lawyer writes down on one side of one piece of paper. The new tax law that was passed in July. I tend to get worked up and emotional about these subjects, so I got off script already, so I'll try to come back on script. When you looked at past indexes, when we tried to get a pulse of small business, that word uncertainty kept coming up. Like, I'd be growing faster if I knew what the interest rates were. I'd be growing faster if I could only export my product. I'd be growing faster if I could find a computer programmer that I don't have to spend $250,000 with right after she graduates from college. That uncertainty has been present for a long time, and we felt strongly that a set of pro-growth tax provisions that were set to expire at the end of this year was causing some of that uncertainty. So we rallied small businesses together and said, wait, let's take that uncertainty away. We met with members of Congress all over the United States. We continue to, and we're on track for 100 meetings between small business owners. Chris and his colleagues are actually hosting these all around the country, and members of Congress. We're going to hit 100. And it's going to kill Steve and Kyla because they're running around like mad people with these roundtables. But we believe that our efforts in convincing Congress to remove this uncertainty is part of the reason we have a new tax law. Now, as is the case with any new law, it's not good enough just to pass it. We have to explain what it does. And I will admit, that's not something a lot of us are very good at. So I have tasked our team, let's put something on paper that Tom Sullivan can understand, and we came up with this one-pager. Because if you haven't talked with someone who helps you with your taxes yet, please, if you remember two things from this lunch. One is the beautiful song, and two, I've got to meet with my accountant because this guy from Washington said, if I'm not looking at things now. I'm leaving cash on the table. I am terrified that come February and March of next year, when most small business owners talk with either their accountants or they open up their tax software, I am terrified that at that point they're going to realize, holy crap, if only I had known at that lunch that Chris had that I could have doubled my expensing for new equipment. I could have doubled my expensing for computers, software, furniture, all part of this new tax law. Or if you have employees, as a lot of manufacturers do, who actually take advantage of the research and development expensing, you will know that in the past 3 years, you've had to amortize that between 5 and 15 years. This new tax law not only goes back to the common sense way of immediate expensing for all R&D expenses, those small businesses that have amortized for the past 3 years, they get to amend their tax returns and shockingly can get a tax refund. Now, here's where the legal disclaimer comes in. I am not a tax professional. I'm not licensed to practice law in the state of Massachusetts. So talk with your certified tax professional before you immediately amend all your returns and then start calling up IRS demanding a refund. But I am told by folks who are much more experts than I, which means they're small business owners, this is real. They are already taking the advantages of this new tax law in calendar year, tax year 2025, and making investments. Let's go back to my friend Tracy. There she is. She runs Wyoming Machine, which is in Stacy, Minnesota. Don't have me explain why Wyoming Machine is in Minnesota, longer story. Anyway, they are a steel fabrication company. She is using, well, first of all, she's a C Corp, so she doesn't get to take advantage of the 20% deduction that's now permanent as part of the law. But she does get to take advantage of the 100% bonus depreciation, and she is buying a $500,000 laser fiber optic welding machine. I've tried welding once. It's really, really hard. Tracy explains to me that it takes 4 months to 9 years for a welder to become professionally certified. This new machine you can get trained on in 1 week, 5 working days. You become a certified welder using this new welding machine. So not only does Tracy get to take advantage of the new tax law, she's also solving her biggest problem, which is a backlog of welding because she can't find welders. And if you can't tell, I'm pretty excited for Tracy. There are other certainly very, very important parts of the new tax law. One is that it makes the opportunity zone legislation permanent. And that, all right, look. That was like a golf clap. But I think this gentleman recognizes that the need for outside investment to the business community that is empowered by the opportunity zones is something that deserved to be permanent. It is now permanent. Also, there are a lot of benefits for employees. Overtime is tax exempt. Tips, if you have teenage children like I do, the idea that tips are now tax-free as well goes a long way. There's only 2 slides left. But I want to talk about our partnership with SBA, and then I'm going to close with an online set of resources that all of you have access to. Our partnership with Kelly Loeffler, who's the new SBA administrator, is a significant one. And she is appearing before our big small business conference in 2 weeks. She has really been narrowing in on SBA loans to try to target specific needs. And rather than me explain what those loans are, I am going to defer to our friends and luncheon sponsor, Rockland Trust. And if you have questions about SBA products, loan products, please, by all means, Don't let them get away from this table after the lunch. Another thing, though, is their regulatory relief hotline, the red tape hotline. Let me give you one example of how successful this hotline could be. The first issue they decided to tackle was under this law called the Corporate Transparency Act. This was a law that said, all right, any small business that has any change of business ownership has to file a report with the federal government in Washington, D.C. Now, small business owners then rushed to this regulatory agency under the Department of Treasury. It was like, whoa, this makes no sense. Like, you already have this information in our tax filings, in the Secretary of State's offices, in Naomi's program. Why are you making us fill out this new paperwork? It makes no sense. Now, get this. First of all, Kelly Loeffler and her leadership, they took action. They removed this requirement. The cost savings for that is $21.7 billion. Well, what does that really mean? I don't know about you, but I'm not getting billions of dollars anytime soon. So I actually tried to dig down, what does $21.7 billion in savings of not doing paperwork, what does it mean? Think about this for a sec. That means that in all 20 cities represented by the Metro South Chamber of Commerce, that means that we could buy 2 cars for every adult in 20 cities. That's what $21 billion means. It's a lot of money. So if you are frustrated with something that is a regulation, a federal regulation, please, 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 by all means, take advantage of it. Take advantage of the Chamber's partnership with SBA and Kelly Loeffler and let them know some more cost savings. I don't think you're going to get a new car, but it makes a difference. Last but not least, I talked a little bit about COVID. I started, if you know me, you saw it, I started to get choked up. It was a pretty emotional time amongst professionals who want desperately to help all of you and small businesses. During that time, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce realized we should be doing more than just lobbying. We should be providing information to small businesses to help them succeed. So we created a small business digital platform. It's called CO, just C-O, and the URL is up here. After COVID, our CEO, Suzanne Clark, said, we're doubling down on CO. Small businesses still need information, and they don't need information from Tom Sullivan. They need information from other small businesses. So every piece of information you see on the small business digital platform is from the perspective, from the narrative and the stories of other small businesses. So during COVID, we had a lot of content about how do you get a PPP loan. Do you guys all have PPP tattooed on your arms like I do? The beauty of this digital platform isn't just the information, but the answer to how do you get a PPP loan came from another small business owner. And it came from the wonderful banker who helped that small business owner get the loan. And for that reason, this information tends to be of greater value to the small business community. This is open source. This is for all of you. So please take advantage of it. And if there are questions that are not answered on that platform, please tell Chris, because our editor-in-chief, who's probably my best friend within the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, she wants to know, what do small business owners want answers to? So tell Chris, and we'll get those answers answered on our small business digital platform. Chris, thank you for allowing for me to say hello, and I'm happy to take a couple questions.
Thanks, Tom. That was amazing. And we got so much great information from you and the other speakers that we are out of time. But we would invite all of you to stick around after and have a conversation with our speakers, and especially as business and community leaders, really think and talk about how we can support new and transitioning businesses, and in particular, how do we let them know about the resources available to them through the state, through the U.S. Chamber. There are a lot of amazing resources, and this in particular, I think most of you don't know, but during COVID, I started a small business in upstate New York while I was running a COVID clinic here, and there are at least 2 deductions on here that I think we qualify for. So this is amazing. Thank you. Also, just to read 2 of the questions, Dennis. Can Dennis do an encore, and where does Dennis perform on weekends? I'd also like to recognize City Councilor Moses Rodriguez, who arrived after the introduction, so thank you, Moses. And now for chamber announcements. On October 9th, we have the legislative reception at Stonehill College from 5 to 7:30. That's always a great event, so thank you, Doug, for arranging that. October 30th, Tracks to Transformation business meeting with MBTA General Manager Philip Eng and emceed by Bridgewater State University President Fred Clark, presented in partnership with the New England Real Estate Journal. November 19th, the Chamber's 112th Annual Meeting and Business Expo at Adult and Teen Challenge Multipurpose Auditorium, featuring Dr. Eric Noyes, Director of Babson College AI Technology, who I heard speak with, Chris and I heard speak yesterday, and he is fantastic, full of energy, will get you thinking for sure. With awards recognition and more than 30 businesses on display. So hope to see you at those programs. And for the door prizes, the Action Report Business Profile and a $25 Amex gift card. The winner is Natalie Capanella from South Shore Habitat for Humanity. And for the winners, please see the chamber staff at the exit on the outside. And then the second door prize, an Urban Air teddy bear and a $25 Amex gift card. The winner is Eddie Nigiola from Grow Associates. And additionally, you may have noticed the insulated lunch bags at your seat. Please take those, compliments of the United Way. And thank yous. Today's ambassador team: Rich Morgan Photography, Brockton Community Access, the Enterprise News, Thorny Lea Golf Club, our sponsor, Rockland Trust, our host sponsor, United Way of Greater Plymouth County, Chamber staff members, Hannah, Emma, and Chris. And finally, thank you to our amazing speakers and guests for being with us today. Thank you all for joining us today. I hope you have a great day and a wonderful weekend, and don't get too wet out there. Thank you all.